Inside Cook County Jail, locked up for being poor. The front door of pretrial justice. In the heart of Chicago sits one of the largest single-site jails in the United States, Cook County Jail. On any given day, thousands of men and women are held here. Most have not been convicted of a crime. They are waiting. Waiting for court. Waiting for trial. Waiting for someone to decide how much freedom costs. For years, investigative reports, court data, and academic research have documented a troubling pattern inside Cook County Jail. A large percentage of detainees were held not because they were convicted, but because they could not afford bail. In other words, they were locked up while presumed innocent, because they were poor. According to public records from Cook County and analyses by organizations such as the Pretrial Justice Institute, prior to major reforms in 2017, thousands of individuals remained jailed pretrial on bond amounts they could not pay. Many were accused of nonviolent offenses. In some cases, bond was set at amounts as low as a few $1,000s. But even 10% of that figure, required to secure release under Illinois' bond system at the time, was out of reach for defendants living paycheck to paycheck. The question that has echoed through courtrooms, academic journals, and reform debates is simple. Was Cook County Jail functioning as a public safety measure, or as a debtor's prison in practice? Tonight, we examine the records, the reforms, and the human cost. And we ask, what does justice look like when freedom depends on cash? Before we continue, if you value factual, in-depth crime documentaries grounded in verified reporting, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the Inmate Diaries. Your support helps us continue sharing accurate, research-driven stories like this one. Now, let's step inside. How bail worked in Cook County. To understand how thousands ended up behind bars without a conviction, we need to understand how Illinois' bail system operated before 2017 reforms. Under Illinois law at the time, judges set monetary bail during bond hearings shortly after arrest. The court would assign a dollar amount, sometimes $5,000, sometimes $50,000 or more, depending on factors such as charge severity, criminal history, and perceived flight risk. Defendants were required to post 10% of the bond amount to secure release. For example, if bail was set at $10,000, a defendant needed $1,000 in cash. If they could not pay that amount, they remained in jail. Data compiled by the Office of the Chief Judge of Cook County showed that prior to 2017, a significant share of detainees in Cook County Jail were being held on bonds of $5,000 or less. Academic researchers from institutions including Loyola University Chicago found that many detainees remained incarcerated pretrial solely because they could not afford even relatively low bond amounts. Importantly, the majority of people held pretrial had not yet been convicted of any offense. Under U.S. law, they were presumed innocent. In 2016, reporting by the Chicago Tribune revealed that thousands of detainees in Cook County Jail were being held on bonds they could not afford, including individuals charged with low-level drug offenses and retail theft. The jail population at the time regularly exceeded 8,000 inmates. Public officials and reform advocates began asking a difficult question. If a person poses little risk to public safety, should their freedom depend on their bank account? The scale of Cook County Jail. Cook County Jail is not a single building. It is a massive detention complex spanning 96 acres on Chicago's southwest side. It includes multiple divisions housing different classifications of detainees, from minimum security to maximum security. At its peak population in 2013, the jail held more than 10,000 detainees on certain days, according to Cook County Sheriff's Office data. By national standards, that made it one of the largest single-site jails in the country. The jail houses men awaiting trial, women awaiting trial, individuals held on probation violations, individuals awaiting transfer to state prison after conviction, individuals detained on immigration holds. But year after year, the majority of its population consisted of pretrial detainees. According to data from the Bureau of Justice Statistics, nationwide, about 2/3 of jail inmates are unconvicted. Cook County mirrored that pattern. The scale matters because each additional day in jail has measurable consequences. Research published in peer-reviewed journals has found that even short periods of pretrial detention are associated with higher rates of job loss, housing instability, and increased likelihood of pleading guilty, sometimes regardless of actual guilt. Simply to secure release. Critics argued that the bail system was exerting pressure on the poorest defendants. Supporters of cash bail argued it ensured court appearance and public safety. The debate intensified. The human cost of pretrial detention. While bond amounts and population statistics dominate policy discussions, the impact of pretrial detention is measured in smaller, quieter losses. A missed paycheck. A terminated lease. A child who does not understand why a parent didn't come home. Public defenders in Cook County repeatedly documented cases in which clients charged with low-level offenses remained in custody for weeks or months because they could not afford bond. According to studies cited by criminal justice reform organizations and law reviews, even a few days in jail can increase the likelihood of losing employment. Court data in Cook County showed that defendants who remained detained pre-trial were statistically more likely to accept plea agreements, often resulting in criminal records that could affect future employment and housing opportunities. It is important to note. There is no public evidence that judges intentionally targeted low-income defendants. Bond decisions were legally structured around flight risk and public safety assessments. However, because wealth varied widely among defendants, the outcome was uneven. A person with financial resources could post bond within hours. A person without savings could remain in custody for months. Same charge. Different outcome. That disparity became central to the reform movement. A system under scrutiny. In 2016 and 2017, scrutiny intensified. Civil rights organizations, including the American Civil Liberties Union of Illinois, publicly criticized the county's reliance on cash bail. Advocates argued the system disproportionately impacted low-income communities and communities of color. In response, Cook County Chief Judge Timothy Evans issued a landmark order in 2017 requiring judges to set bail amounts that defendants could realistically afford. The order emphasized that monetary bail should not be used to detain individuals solely because they lacked resources. Following implementation, the jail population declined significantly. By 2019, Cook County Jail's population had dropped below 6,000, a sharp reduction compared to earlier years. Studies conducted after the reform indicated that court appearance rates remained high, and there was no immediate evidence of a significant increase in violent crime attributable solely to bond reform. However, debates over the broader causes of crime trends remain complex and contested. What is clear from publicly available data is that fewer individuals were detained pre-trial solely due to inability to pay. The system had shifted. But the story was far from over. A day inside the divisions. At approximately 5 a.m., lights switch on. Inside Cook County Jail, the day begins early. According to the Cook County Sheriff's Office, detainees are assigned to divisions based on classification, a system that considers charge type, criminal history, gang affiliation indicators, and behavioral assessments. Divisions range from minimum security dormitories to high-security units such as Division 9. Each day follows a regimented schedule. Morning count. Meal service. Court call. Medical appointments. Limited recreation. Lockdown periods. Movement is controlled and supervised. For pretrial detainees, court dates dictate the rhythm of uncertainty. Individuals may be transported in chains to courthouses across Chicago, often returning late in the evening if hearings are delayed. Sheriff's Office public reports confirm that the jail also provides access to medical care, mental health services, and limited educational programming. However, oversight agencies and watchdog reports have documented recurring challenges related to staffing shortages, mental health treatment delays, and facility infrastructure concerns over the years. It is important to clarify, Cook County Jail is not a prison. It is a jail, primarily housing individuals awaiting trial or serving short sentences. But for those unable to afford bond, days stretch into weeks. Weeks into months. And the presumption of innocence does little to change the experience of confinement. Mental health inside the jail. Cook County Jail has been described by some officials as one of the largest mental health institutions in Illinois. That statement reflects a documented reality. A significant percentage of detainees enter custody with diagnosed or undiagnosed mental health conditions. Cermak Health Services, operated by Cook County Health, is responsible for providing medical and behavioral health services inside the jail. Public data from Cook County Health indicates that thousands of detainees annually receive psychiatric evaluation or treatment. In past years, federal investigations and civil rights litigation raised concerns about mental health care standards in the jail. For example, in 2010, the U.S. Department of Justice investigated conditions at the jail, including suicide prevention protocols and medical care delivery. Subsequent agreements required reforms and monitoring. Mental health treatment in a jail environment presents structural challenges. Limited clinical space. Security constraints. High turnover of detainees. Overcrowding in earlier years. For detainees held pretrial because they could not afford bond, untreated or poorly managed mental health conditions could worsen under confinement. Sheriff's Office officials have stated in public records that improvements have been made in staffing and suicide prevention efforts over the past decade. Independent monitoring reports confirm some improvements, while also documenting ongoing pressures related to high demand. The intersection of poverty, mental health, and pretrial detention became another layer of the reform debate. If someone cannot afford bond and also struggles with mental illness, jail may become the default holding space. Even if conviction never occurs. The data behind the debate. Beyond anecdote, the debate over Cook County's bail practices was shaped by data. Research conducted by the University of Chicago Crime Lab and other academic institutions analyzed thousands of bond hearings before and after the 2017 reforms. Key findings publicly reported include: after bond reform, more defendants were released on recognizance or low-cost bonds. Jail population declined significantly. Court appearance rates remained relatively stable. However, the broader public conversation often blended bond reform with rising concerns about crime trends in Chicago. It is critical to distinguish correlation from causation. Multiple criminologists and policy analysts have stated in public forums that crime rates are influenced by numerous factors, including economic conditions, policing strategies, firearm access, and community-level variables. There is no publicly documented evidence directly attributing citywide crime increases solely to bond reform. Still, opponents argued that judges were releasing individuals who later committed new offenses while awaiting trial. Several high-profile cases received extensive media coverage. Supporters of reform countered that isolated cases should not override systemic data showing the majority of released defendants appeared for court and did not commit serious new crimes. The public debate intensified. And Cook County became a national case study. The cost of incarceration. Operating a jail of this size carries substantial financial cost. According to Cook County budget documents, the Department of Corrections operates with an annual budget in the hundreds of millions of dollars. The exact figure varies year to year depending on staffing, healthcare contracts, and facility upgrades. Pretrial detention is expensive. Estimates cited in public budget hearings suggest that housing a single detainee can cost well over $100 per day, though precise per detainee costs fluctuate. When thousands of individuals remain detained pre-trial due to inability to pay bond, the financial burden extends beyond individuals and families, it becomes a public expenditure issue. Reform advocates argued that reducing unnecessary pretrial detention could redirect resources toward community-based services, mental health treatment, or violence prevention programs. Opponents raised concerns that public safety risks could generate different long-term costs. The fiscal dimension added another layer to the policy debate. Justice is not only moral and legal. It is also economic. Stories in the court record. Court transcripts and media investigations reveal patterns, though individual cases vary widely. Prior to reforms, reporting documented examples of defendants charged with nonviolent property or drug offenses receiving bond amounts that required several hundred or several $1,000s for release. For individuals living below the federal poverty line, that sum was often unattainable. In some documented cases reported by credible news outlets, defendants remained in custody longer pre-trial than the potential sentence they would have faced if convicted. It is important to clarify that not all bond decisions resulted in prolonged detention. Many defendants were released quickly. Others posted bond through family assistance or bond funds operated by nonprofit organizations. But patterns documented by journalists and researchers indicated that poverty frequently determined the length of detention. Judges retained discretion. Prosecutors made recommendations. Defense attorneys argued for release. And in many courtrooms, the outcome hinged on financial capacity. The system operated according to law. But critics questioned whether legality equaled fairness. The end of cash bail in Illinois. In 2021, Illinois lawmakers passed the Safety, Accountability, Fairness and Equity Today Act, commonly known as the SAFE-T Act. One of its most significant provisions eliminated cash bail statewide. On September 18, 2023, Illinois officially ended the use of monetary bail, becoming the first state in the nation to do so. Judges now determine pretrial release based on risk assessments and statutory detention standards, not on a defendant's ability to pay. Under the new system, prosecutors must demonstrate that a defendant poses a specific threat to public safety or is a willful flight risk in order to seek pretrial detention. The law faced legal challenges. In 2022, a group of states' attorneys sued, arguing the reform was unconstitutional. In July 2023, the Illinois Supreme Court upheld the law, allowing it to take effect. For Cook County Jail, the change marked the end of an era. The question of whether people were being locked up for being poor had moved from courtroom discretion to statewide reform. The jail still holds thousands. But money alone is no longer the deciding factor in pretrial freedom. The debate continues, about public safety, about equity, about outcomes that will only be measurable over time. What is publicly documented is this. For years, thousands of people in Cook County remained behind bars while legally presumed innocent, often because they could not afford bond. Today, Illinois operates under a different model. Whether it becomes a national blueprint, or a cautionary tale, will depend on data still unfolding. Inside Cook County Jail, the lights still turn on at 5 a.m. But the rules that determine who sleeps there have changed. This has been Inside Cook County Jail, locked up for being poor. If you value factual, research-driven prison documentaries, subscribe to the Inmate Diaries and support the channel. Your support helps us continue sharing verified, in-depth stories that matter. Thank you for watching.